Hi, it's Kia again, back with another episode of Hot Topics Live podcast. And this is your weekly reminder that you are amazing and you deserve to be living your best life possible, whatever that means for you. So today I have no co host, it's just me again. And we're sending so much love to Matilda. You know, you love her, who is in Armenia right now preparing for her marriage. And I will be in Armenia on Tuesday. On Tuesday I will be in Armenia, and I am so excited to participate in their beautiful wedding with darling Sasha. So I'm sending them so much love, and I will not have an episode next week because I will be in Armenia celebrating this beautiful love that we actually watched unfold kind of on Hot Topics. So if you remember, you've been watching from the beginning, or if you haven't, you can go back through my Facebook page for Hot Topics Live podcast, and you'll hear the story of how Matilda and Sasha met during the pandemic. And then she got stuck there on her very first visit to meet this new guy she was seeing during the pandemic. So we talked all about that as it was happening. We caught up with her again as the relationship got more serious to see how they were doing during the pandemic. And they were making it work. And then we found out that they got engaged after things started to ease up through the pandemic. And now they're getting married. So their love story has really played out a lot on Hot Topics Live. And of course, she's one of my main co hosts. So you can catch that on YouTube or on our Facebook page, and we're sending her lots and lots of love. So today I have an incredible guest. This show is for you if you have ever experienced trauma, if you have ever experienced what it feels like to be triggered, as we call it, which is sort of a nervous system dysregulation, and it's trapped stored emotions in your body, and it just feels terrible. It feels really terrible to be in a triggered state. And so this episode is for you. My guest is this incredible woman, and you have to follow her on Instagram so you can see all of her wonderful posts and all of her incredible content, because she teaches all about this with a lot of love and compassion, and it's absolutely beautiful. So if you are on a healing journey, if you have experienced any trauma, and I know you have, because all of us who are still alive through this pandemic, okay, that was a traumatic situation, okay? We all have PTSD in some shape or another. So this can be for you, okay? So, and any other trauma, like many of you know that I'm a child abuse survivor. So that's trauma. And a lot of times we have these sensations stored in our body. We're going to learn all about this with Marina. She's going to teach us what somatics is and how it can help us heal that. And we're going to learn a lot about her and why you need to know who she is, why you should be following her on Instagram, and how she can help you if you need that kind of help right now. Or maybe it's not you, maybe it's someone you love. So let's bring her on.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to Hot Topics Live. So tell me, where are you and what time is it now?
I'm in Costa Rica and it's 2:37 p.m.
Wow, our guests are from all over the world, and I'm so glad to have you all the way from Costa Rica. As you know, lots of my viewers know, and listeners on the podcast version, I am in the beautiful Pacific Northwest of the United States. It is 1:37 p.m. here, and I say this to just bring awareness to the fact that we are all over the world and we form these beautiful connections everywhere, and it's amazing. So
Yeah,
welcome to the
technology is
show.
so cool for that, right? It's such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I want to dive right into it because I have so many questions for you. But first, I want to know what brought you to this kind of work?
So it was my business, but not only. My first business around 7 years ago was plant-based coaching. And I just felt really, really stuck. And at that time, I was really operating through my mind. I was thinking a lot. I was like doing a lot of marketing research and strategy and thinking and thinking and thinking. until two things happened. I had a coach, one of my first coaches, who said to me, "Your business is a trauma response." I was like, okay, what the heck does that mean? That's fascinating. My whole body was like, she's right, but I don't know what it means. And then another coach around that same time who was like, I just want you to sit with yourself, just sit with your body. And I was like, what? I have to figure this out. I have to make money. I was like really stressed out about it. And she said, you've been doing so much thinking, and is it getting you anywhere? And I was like, no. So that's kind of how that started. And then I started to discover somatic work and what it means and how it's like being in the body rather than thinking. And my whole life up until that point, I lived neck up. Like I didn't feel like I had a body. I was really disconnected from my body because of trauma. And as you said in the beginning, it's the pandemic for everyone, but through my work, I really learned that every single human goes through trauma. Like even being born is a trauma, we're like in this cozy little place in our mother's belly, and then boom, world, like lights, doctors, screaming, whatever it is. So we all experience it, and it gets stored in our bodies. So anyway, so then I actually did 3 years of somatic experiencing therapy for myself. In the beginning, it sucked. It was really hard, and I wanted to give up, and it was intense. And over time, it just changed my life. Like it was the most amazing thing, and I was like, I have to do this. This is exactly what I am meant to do. And I got trained, and I took a bunch of courses, and kind of changed my coaching into this.
Wow. What do you think the impact that your coaching has on people now that since you've experienced trauma, we all have, like you said, and you were able to use this coaching to what you've learned to help yourself. So, what do you think the impact it is on other people?
I think it's first of all feeling seen and heard, and feeling that, you're not crazy, you're not weird, there's nothing wrong with you. Your responses and your reactions are really like a normal thing. And if you understand the nervous system, you really get how when we are triggered, as you said, when we feel unsafe, even though there's no actual looming threat, but we feel it in our body, that's good that we try to protect ourselves. That's good that we feel anxious, right? Like we need those things. So that's one part of it, is like just the educational piece allows for a lot of compassion, to feel like you're not alone, you're not crazy. The worst part of trauma, I think, is the loneliness and feeling like no one gets you. And the other piece is, in my work, I am a very compassionate coach. So I just hold that space. I allow whatever comes for that person to come, whatever emotions, and they can feel supported and held. And through that, they can start to actually use those traumatic experiences for wisdom in their lives rather than a way to shut down.
Wow, that's amazing. So, okay, let's back up a little bit and start at the very beginning. And that we understand that you've experienced triggers and that what you've learned and how you can use it to help people. Um, okay, what is somatic work? What is that?
Somatic work means work within the body. So instead of talking about it, going to talk therapy and talking and rationalizing, we actually go through sensations and emotions in the body. So if you're in a bad mood and I ask you what's going on for you, and you start telling me, well, this and this and this happened, we're not going to shift your mood by talking about it, right?
Mhm.
Like there's, people say, just be positive. Well, if I'm sad, I'm going to be sad. Like I'm not going to talk about it and then feel positive. And so I think talk therapy has a huge benefit when your nervous system is regulated. So when you feel really present, when you feel connected to your body, and when we are triggered, a lot of my clients are constantly in the state of feeling threatened. it's not, your mind actually turns off. Your rational mind turns off, scientifically, because you are focused on survival. You're focused on running from the threat or hiding or fighting. And so it's not going to help to talk about it. So I kind of do a mix, because I do find that when people work through, hello, and when people do work through the body and find that nervous system regulation, meaning they feel present, even if they're crying, they feel really present to their tears, they feel clear, they feel calm. It's like you're talking to an adult. You don't get lost in that emotion, or you don't avoid the emotion. That's where we can have a conversation and talk about it and make the links of like what's happening now and how it links back to your childhood and all of that. But because trauma is stored in the body, a lot of people don't remember what happened when they were 1 years old, maybe, and their mom had a bad day, and or she was busy and they were crying and she didn't come. And that's a trauma, and that actually affects how you operate in the world. So all of that gets stored in your body. And I have so many cool examples, but one is, even I would tell a client, like, just feel supported, feel how you can let go and feel supported. And she was like, no, I'm not supported. And she would never say that from her conscious mind, because she knows that she is supported by me in that moment. But she was in her body, and her body spoke, I'm not supported. And I've had a client say, I don't trust you, I don't believe you. And I thought those were beautiful moments, because that's where we can understand a lot of her other behaviors and other ways of being that make so much sense, because she didn't feel that she could trust her parents. She didn't feel supported in her childhood, and her body remembers that, not her mind. So that's kind of a nutshell of somatic work.
Okay, so let me just make sure I understand this well. So when we have a trauma, which could have been anything that happened in our life, right? That the emotion of that is stored in our body. And so we have these reactions when something makes us feel the same way. And now that we're an adult, and so that's kind of a trigger. So when we're in a triggered state, we're sort of in survival mode, where we're in fight, flight, or fawn, perhaps. And then we're reacting based on that state. So it's probably not the best time to make decisions, I guess. But because they're reactive, right? And so you also feel this in your body, right? There's sensations you feel in your body when you're triggered. I know for me, I can, depending on the trigger, I feel it in my head, or I feel it in my chest, or I feel it in my stomach, or my whole body feels like pins and needles, right? And I feel very overwhelmed. So when we're talking about nervous system dysregulation, this is when sort of our nervous system, which is determines whether we're in that state, in like an excited state or a calm state, is all out of whack, right? So could you explain a little bit more about exactly what nervous system dysregulation means? Because we're hearing that a lot lately, and maybe some people don't know.
Yeah, I love how you explain all of that, by the way. So
Thank you.
the nervous system basically has three states. One is, it's called ventral vagal. Vagal comes from the vagus nerve, which is our longest cranial nerve in the body. And it goes all the way from the base of our brain to all the organs, our internal organs. That's why a lot of people struggle with digestive issues, and that have nothing to do with their physical health. It's a somatic
Mhm.
symptom of trauma.
Wow.
So, yeah. So when you are in ventral vagal, that's called the social engagement system. You are present, you're connected to yourself, you're connected to other people. That's that beautiful, connected state. And then the next one is called sympathetic. So that's fight or flight. And that's when, if we feel like there's a threat, we want to be able to run away or fight, which is perfect, which is, great that we have that ability. And that's where we would go into anxiety, maybe rage, really intense stress. And then if we feel like, okay, I can't run away or I can't fight, and these can also be emotional states, like I don't have the emotional capacity to set boundaries, to speak up for myself. That's also kind of a form of fight. Then I would go into freeze and shut down, and that's the dorsal vagal collapse. So you feel numb, you feel really overwhelmed, maybe you feel even dissociated, so you're like leaving your body. And that state is called preparation for death, because it's when, if you are, going to be hurt, you won't feel it. It won't be so painful because your body is numb, you don't feel anything. So I'm explaining it in this way to show that these are all really necessary, because if we are under threat, we need all of these states. But if it's a perceived threat and we get thrown into this collapse and we stay there for hours, days, even weeks, I have clients who can't even like imagine what it's like to be connected and present. That's what we work on. We don't work on eliminating all the states. We want all three of them. We work on shortening the time of being in each state, in the sympathetic and the dorsal.
Wow, that's incredible. So you can spend a triggered state for weeks. That's incredible. I actually know some people who spend more time triggered, like they're triggered so frequently that they're more time triggered than they are feeling calm and at peace. So does this affect men and women the same?
Yeah, I haven't seen any differences between men and women. Maybe, it has also to do with the specific situation that we're triggered in and the emotion that we express. Like women don't feel as comfortable with anger. So maybe men express more anger, whereas underneath that is sadness, but they're not showing it. A lot of my clients will get stuck. I experienced that too, in an emotion that is not actually the core emotion that's happening for them, because they feel really uncomfortable with the other one. So for me, for example, I can be angry like so easily. I don't mind anger, but sadness is like super scary. So I can be stuck in that anger for a long time, where actually if I just cry, I'm done. I'm good. I'm back to being regulated. So I guess in that sense, maybe there are some differences, but really, I'm not aware of anything of, the general nervous system states.
Wow, that's interesting though. That different. So it depends on what emotion you're more comfortable being in, and it may not even be the actual feeling that you're actually feeling. So does the somatic work actually help you identify what the true underlying feeling is so that you can work through that?
So I actually found that a lot of the somatic field is really focused on sensations rather than emotions. And I
Mhm.
find like a lot of benefit in actually identifying your emotion that you're going through, because it gives you information. Emotions give you information. So say if I'm feeling angry and I say I feel angry, then I know, okay, maybe someone overstepped my boundary. And so I'm angry.
Mm.
But if I say I'm feeling sad, and if someone overstepped my boundary, I need to tell them that, and I need to express my need, right? So it gives me that information. That's what I'm needing. If I'm sad, maybe I need a hug or someone to comfort me so I don't feel lonely. So emotions give you that information, and so I find working with emotions is super important. I learned more about emotions from an amazing therapist. Her name is Hillary. I always mess up her name. Her book is about the change triangle. So if you look up Hillary the Change Triangle, she has two last names, and I always mess it up, but it's really, really brilliant. And it does include the pieces about sensations in the body, but it's also about like labeling that emotion, feeling it in your body, allowing the energy of the emotion to move through your body and to feel it. And then if you get really anxious, if you feel shame or guilt, that kind of hides emotions. So that her work is a lot
Mm.
about that, the things that are hiding us, kind of protecting us from accessing the emotion. And once we access the emotion and it moves through, we come back to being grounded. We come back to ventral, essentially. So we really need to do this work of feeling. And so a lot of us get distracted with the phone or shopping or drinking or whatever it is, and it's not a criticism. It's just we are scared to feel. It feels intense. It feels overwhelming. So it's really learning how to stay in your body and feel an emotion. And my work is about first getting regulated. So first you get regulated, you feel present, and then you can stay with that emotion from that space of regulation.
Wow, that's a lot of really excellent information, because if you connect the emotion and the sensation, then you get relief. And if you spend any amount of time in a trigger state, which I have many times, it sucks. It's so painful. It's like, I would describe it as like hell. To be triggered for an extended period of time is a nightmare. And so in order to come back to center, to get back to your calm state, the desired state, knowing these strategies and how to move through these things is a life changer. It's an absolute lifesaver, which is why I wanted to do this episode with you, because I think that the work that you're doing has so much power to completely change lives for the better. And that's what we want on Hot Topics Live. So, podcast. So, tell me, what are some of these sensations we might feel if we are in a triggered state? Because I know initially I didn't know anything about this, right? This is all just part of my healing journey and me trying to figure out how to feel better, right? And so I started to learn to identify what the sensations were in my body. So how do we start that process?
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. I mean, that's what happens to us. We want to figure it out and like not be in this hell as you describe, and
Yeah.
even use that trigger for healing, because the triggered state is just reminding you, hey, here's a trauma that you haven't processed yet. Here's a trauma that you haven't felt fully yet. So here's the work you got to do, right? And of course, it's super painful. And it's really also healing once you learn to work with it. So the sensations, it might be you feel heaviness, you might feel constriction, you might feel tension, or you might also feel like really open and light and radiant in your chest, in your belly, in your throat, other areas in your body. And it's really, how I recommend starting is just sitting with your body as it is now. Maybe you feel nothing. Maybe there's numbness, and that's what you notice. It's just noticing and practicing not judging it. Just being like, I notice in my chest, it feels numb, or I notice in my belly, it feels like someone is poking me almost, or tingles, or whatever sensations you feel, just naming that in a neutral sort of way and being able to stay with it, being able to stay and expand your ability to stay with it. For me, in the beginning, within like a few minutes, I was asleep of being in my body, because it just felt so intense that I would immediately go into that dorsal collapse state and just fall asleep. My body was just protecting itself. So that's normal. If you've experienced a lot of trauma, haven't worked with the body, maybe only talked about it, it's overwhelming. We store it in the body. We don't store it in the mind only. We do create beliefs and, thoughts out of it, but the sensations are the most overwhelming part.
Wow. I mean, I would agree with that for sure. So we start to become aware of them. And then are there like techniques with somatic healing that we can use to sort of really begin diving deeper into this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I share a lot of those. For example, you can look on YouTube, Butterfly Hug, that comes from EMDR. And it's a really nice way to come back to feeling grounded. And then there's also the VU, which is Peter Levine's exercise, which is just making the VU sound. There's a whole bunch. I actually have courses on this with like all these different ones that I've collected. And essentially, the more you do this work, you even develop your own little things that really work for you. For example, for me, just sitting in water, like in a pool or in the bathtub, and feeling your body, like feeling all that settling feeling, that all the energy is like coming down and you feel more and more settled. That's really, really healing. So, and not every technique works the same for everyone because we're all different. So it's really finding what works for you specifically.
Yeah, I love the water. So if I go to the coast and sit by the ocean or a big lake, or if I, like you said, if I wash my hands sometimes, it's enough to help me sort
Mm.
of start to get it together. um, but I love sitting in a salt bath or in the pool, something like that. Water really does help me find my way back to me. And I know it does actually work for a lot of people. So we can find there's so many of these techniques, and it's interesting that a lot of people don't know anything about it, but we can find them on YouTube and certainly on your Instagram. You're doing a lot of work there and sharing a lot of really good information in your reels and in your posts that you're putting up there. And so I guess when you were first learning all of this stuff, it I guess you said it impacted you in a way to where you felt like you should help other people with that. So I want to talk a little bit about your specific coaching and what that process looks like.
Yeah, so I do single sessions with people if they want, so that's, available. I always, of course, promote like a longer process, but not everyone has the capacity for that, the finances, whatever it is. So even one session can make an impact. So I in the longer process, I work with people for 3 months, and we work on Zoom, and we do this mix of talking and going into the body, and it's very gentle. And the focus really is building trust with me, because I am another human, and part of this is how can you kind of work on the relational aspect? How can you trust someone else? How can you feel safe with someone else? And then also work on your own healing, and receiving support in that process. So it's like a slow and gradual process where in the beginning we just get to know each other. I really find out, what do you like about coaching or therapy? Like, what have been good experiences? What have been, experiences that made you feel really unsafe? Like, what do I need to know about you? And then also we go through how happy and satisfied they are in their life. Like, what's working, what's not working, what are their goals. Some people, it's literally like to know myself. Like, I don't even, I feel lost. For some people, they have very specific goals, like in finances or in their business or whatever it is. And then I'm very intuitive. That's the first session. But after that, I'm just like, go with the flow. So I just ask them, how was your week? And then they tell me. And then when I feel like it's the right moment, I'm like, how do you know that? Or how do you feel that? Tell me what's happening for you right now in your body. And it depends on the person, but we can spend the whole hour in the body just literally tracking sensations, and then that'll guide them depending on what's happening, like to more safety, or to what does this remind you of in your childhood. And like just giving some cool examples. One of my clients, for example, at work was very triggered by a person, and we slowed it down to where I asked her, you're walking towards this person, you're imagining walking, and slow it down. Everything is really slowed down in somatic work so you can notice what's happening. So she's walking, and I'm like, what's happening? Oh, I feel this in my chest. I feel this thing. And okay, does this remind you of anything? Yep, it reminds me of my dad exactly. So it's really, taking the present day experiences and seeing how they connect to the past, to trauma from the past, and what are the emotions that I haven't felt because I felt helpless, because I was little, because I felt under resourced, I didn't have the capacity to express all of this. Let's feel it now. Let's rage, let's cry, let's like express all of that. And that's really the healing. And then there's also the educational piece where I give them my online course and they learn about the nervous system in depth and emotions and healing and all these different practices in there.
Wow. So that's really in depth. Now, can you do this at a distance? Can we do it like using technology or
Yeah,
okay. So
I do
anyone
it
around the
all on
world.
Zoom. Yeah, I
Great.
have clients everywhere. Like I do it on Zoom. So I talk to someone from India today and from England, like today in one day. So it's really, really cool.
Gotta love technology. So,
Yeah.
do you notice any differences between men and women when you're doing somatic work on how they move through the process?
You know, I honestly work mostly with women, but the male clients that I had, and it doesn't mean I don't want to work with men, they just come to me less for some reason. And I think it's because it's harder for men to feel, you know? It's a societal thing. Like society doesn't allow men to feel, it's not encouraged. And it's definitely trickier. Like women connect to their intuition and their emotions really, really easily, and they open up easier from my experience. And for men it takes more time to go there, and sometimes they resist going there. So that's kind of the difference. But again, I haven't worked with a lot of men. I have a friend who's also a somatic practitioner that loves working with men, and she says to her it's like the same, and they really do open up and they connect to their emotions. So I would love to experience that.
Well, good because most of my audience is men. So, guys,
Cool. Come, please
start
come.
hitting her up.
I am
Good.
ready. I would love that. That would be amazing.
I think it's beautiful work because if you, so I want to back up to something. You've mentioned this particular word a few times through the course of this episode, and it's this feeling of being unsafe, right? And this feeling of lack of safety leads to a lot of trouble in our lives, right? With the triggering and fear and how we respond to that fear. And so the beauty of the work that you do is to sort of help us connect to that and find what's underneath and all of that. And exactly what you were saying about men, I'm raising two of them. So I really encourage them to go into their emotions and that they're valid and everything like that. But a lot of men have not historically had that type of upbringing, even from women, right? Even
Yeah.
as a single mother, because of the way society dictates men should be and be raised and behave. They're not given the opportunity to get in touch with their innermost feelings and or express them. Sometimes they don't even know what they are. So I think doing somatic work can be beneficial in a lot of ways, which brings me to my next question. How do you feel that somatic work could be beneficial for men in relationships? Like how could this impact their long-term relationships with wives and girlfriends? And I know it's similar for women, so it will have the same impact. But what I understand is that if you are in a relationship and you become dysregulated, this can have a negative impact on your relationship. So I want to highlight the importance of this work with regard to relationships as well. So
Oh
what do you
my gosh.
think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, yeah, I think it's similar. I experience it with my partner all the time that if we just kept the conversation on, well, you didn't do the dishes and you know, these petty things, like I remember being stuck in that for a really long time where there was something much deeper under that. There was being triggered. And also expecting the other person to take your pain away or to make you feel better or to fulfill all your needs, where really that comes from your parent didn't do that. Your parents couldn't fulfill all of your needs in general. For all of us, that is not possible. I'm sure you know as a parent. You're a human being, you're not perfect. And so we have a lot of grieving to do there, for all of us. And it's very healing to grieve those parts that actually didn't get fulfilled. And often, instead of doing that, because it's uncomfortable, especially for men, grief is sadness, it's an emotion. They just expect their partners to make them feel better, or, they expect their partners to do XYZ thing. So, for men and women, in a relationship, I think this is like the most important work is to pay attention because we attract partners that are similar to our parents always. And so it's like an opportunity for healing, right? Like it's not fun, but it's also like if you think that your partner is difficult and triggering and you're going to find someone who's not, probably not going to happen because you're focusing on your partner rather than focusing on your stuff. You have to heal your own responses. I actually, for 2 days straight, have been telling clients the same line that don't focus on what they're doing, focus on your reaction to what they're doing. Because that's the important piece. Like if you focus on that, when we moved to Costa Rica, my partner was more reactive than usual. He's usually like super chill and calm. And that triggered I don't want to cuss. I don't know if I'm allowed. It
You
triggered me a
can.
lot. I can't. It triggered the shit out of me. So, and so I kept focusing, as humans do, I kept focusing on him. Like, he's the problem. If he just calms down, like everything's going to be fine with me. But the truth is that he was triggering a part of me that, was triggered in childhood. And that was my healing to do. And then, of course, I could tell him, like, look, it's not cool that you're more reactive than usual. I don't like it. But I wouldn't be triggered by it. I would be like, please be nicer, but it's not it's okay. I
Yeah.
am maintaining my cool rather than, really losing it. So it's the same for both parties. And once we become aware of our bodies, it's going to tell you so much. You're just going to be amazed, like how much information that you have about yourself. It's truly, truly amazing. Like if you only pay attention to your mind, you're not going to know why you're triggered, because it's very hard to tell by the mind. You do have specific thoughts. Maybe you see your partner as really terrible when they're just like doing a little annoying thing, or, oh, we're going to break up and we can't be together. It's the end. But when you pay attention to your body is going to feel unsafe. And you're going to feel that. I feel unsafe. What does this remind me of? When did I feel like this in my childhood? And that's where the healing really comes from.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing too. I'm just sitting here thinking of all the times. But like really it is important to know that it's not your partner's responsibility, right? It's always back to self. Always back to self. So if something comes up, you have to like look within first and figure out why you're reacting the way you're reacting. And I really loved something that you said earlier. It reminded me of a specific situation in my own life when you were like, when you recognize the trigger is something that was unresolved within you. So it may not even be this person that's triggering you, may not, yes, they're the catalyst, but really the trigger is something else. So a couple months ago, I belong to this group of women. They're amazing. We meet up and they're magical and we hang out, right? And this it's all based on this one YouTube channel. And so when I went to one of these meetings, we were all giving some input on a scenario that one of the girls were going through, right? We all support each other, sort of like a sister circle. And yeah, yes. And one of the women there sort of cut me off and sort of talked over me and just, dismissed my opinion, or actually didn't even really get to give it. And I was so triggered. Like I was so completely triggered by it. And I started writing down, like trying to figure out immediately what was happening and why was I so upset. Right. And so I ended up leaving that meeting early and I spent the night deciding whether I wanted to say something to her about how I felt, right? Or whether I was just going to leave it alone and not waste my time speaking up about it. But historically, I've been someone who held back on speaking up about things. So it's a good practice for me to always do that. So I did. But in the process of speaking up about it, I recognized why I was triggered. It was from not even this, it reminded me of how I was bullied by some girls that I'd forgotten about a million years ago. I think I was in like fourth grade. And there were these girls that were mean to me, and they always marginalized my opinions and feelings. And I was very upset about it as a young girl. I was probably 9. So, that being said, I realized at this moment, and I am far from 9, okay, that this was unresolved, something I had completely forgotten about, and had moved on with my life. And this moment brought me back to that little girl version of myself who was feeling silenced and undervalued. And so, even though I was like very polite in how I spoke to her and I spoke up about it, I did that. I said my piece or whatever. Recently, she sent me a message talking about it, right? And expressing that she really didn't mean to make me feel like that. It was not her intention at all. And I said to her at that time, "Girl, I forgot about that. But actually, I want to thank you because you helped me recognize an unresolved wound that I was then able to heal. So thank you." Right. And it was just a really beautiful moment that when you are triggered, you can recognize that sometimes it's not them. Bring it back to you, bring it back to self, and do the work on yourself. And if you find that those things are happening to you, or you're stuck in these triggered states of this feeling of being unsafe and insecure, is so horrible to have to live in, that this is why we need people like you, Marina, to help us to identify the sensations we're having in our body, to bring it back to ourselves, to do the work. And talk therapy is just a lot of times not enough for that. Sometimes talking about it is re-triggering.
Yeah.
So, you know
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, I love
I
that
love so
story
much what
you
you do.
shared. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it makes so much sense. And I've been in those situations so many times. And what always helps me when I sit there and I try to like rationalize, what does this remind me of? Something similar must have happened. Sometimes it's so not similar, like event wise, but the feeling
Mm,
inside. And that is why that beautiful quote by Gabor Mate and others about trauma is, it's not about the event, it's about what happens inside of you as a result of the event. Because the event
mhm.
can be someone sneezes on you, right? And like someone can cut me off and I can be like, oh, whatever. But for you, it's a trigger, right? Or the
Mhm,
opposite. Like it can really, really trigger me. And for you, it's like no big deal because it's
mhm.
not about what's happening, it's what's happening inside of us. And it's when we're little, how much support did we get when this thing happened? For example, for you, if when those girls were like that, the rest of the class or the rest of the group was like, that's not okay, why are you doing that to her? It might have not registered as a trauma, it might have
Right.
registered as like a beautiful experience, right?
Right. It's so true. It's so true. That's amazing. So, well, I want to know more. I want to know more ways that we can benefit from somatic healing and how we can directly use it to impact our relationships with others.
Relationships. So I really, I like examples. I love that you gave an example. And I can give even an example from my own therapy session this morning around this part of me that's like a doer. Like I feel like I have to do all the time and be productive. And it's draining. It's a very draining part. And so I worked with my therapist somatically. We also do parts work. So I also bring that into my coaching, is like really noticing something as a part of you, not your whole
Oh,
experience. So this part of me, it's like we kind of studied it, like we kind of tried to gather information, and suddenly I realized like this is how I honor my grandmother, because my grandmother was very much like, she's still alive, but she's not like that anymore because she's tired. But she was always this like doer, 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 doer. And a lot of times this healing is also generational. So we actually try to connect with people in our family, our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, and we want to honor their memory and their legacy in a way that is not very healthy for us. Or we carry on their traumas, their unresolved trauma, and we try to resolve it through us. So that shows up a lot in relationships, even with that part of me when I get like busy and all of that, I get kind of like I don't have space for my partner. I'm very stressed. I'm anxious. I just want to work, work, work. I can take out this anger on him. Like all of these things, it's all connected. So it's really like within relationship, if you expect your partner to always fill your cup, but your cups are not filled in different areas of your life because of trauma, because of, for example, you don't have a lot of friends because your heart was hurt and you're distancing yourself away from your friends. So you expect your partner to be your best friend and your lover and your cook and your, all the things like that's not realistic. We can't do that. So we have to work on, why was my heart closed? Why can't I maintain friendships and connections? Let me work on that. Let me fill that cup, and so I can come into my romantic relationship really filled up. Like if I come in really filled up, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be fun, rather than expecting that person to fill you up.
I'm curious about something, since we're talking all about relationships and everything and how this work helps. And I love what you just said about, you got to fill your own cup. I know I say that. It's so cliche. Everyone says it, but it's so true. Like you have to fill up your own cup. You just do. You have to. And yes, people can give to you, and that's fine. Sometimes in your moments when you're low, but you can't rely on that. Like the goal is to do your work, to be at your best and bring that best into the relationship with you, right? And I think that this is interesting because I think that we can co-regulate our nervous systems in our relationships if we understand ourselves and we're self-aware and what we're bringing into the relationship. So do you think that somatic work could be sort of something you could coach couples with? Like could you come as a couple and meet with a somatic coach and like do work together through these things? Is that
Yeah,
something that's possible?
absolutely. We have, so you said the word co-regulate. So we kind of have three pathways to regulate our nervous system. We only really focused on self-regulation, but then there's also co-regulation, right? So if, the other day I was kind of randomly sad in a bad mood and my partner was like really happy and all he did was come and give me a hug and then I was instantly better. So there's, co-regulation, and then we have also auto-regulation, which we are all good at, like scrolling or watching a show or going for a walk, like all these things. And we need kind of access to all three, and some of us are really good at only one or two, but not the third one. So as we work more on expanding our regulation capacities, it really, really impacts relationships in a beautiful way. And that also has to do with our attachment styles. So when we're born, we have a certain relationship with our caregivers, and that in our first like 3 years of life impacts the rest of our life, how we relate. Does connection feel supportive or does it feel threatening? Do I feel like I really, really want connection, but when I have it, I'm like, no, it's too much? Or I avoid connection because I'm already just scared of it. And all of that is about how we were raised. Because who teaches us to co-regulate? It's our caregivers when we're born. We don't know how to regulate ourselves. The baby just cries and cries, and then someone comes and is like, it's okay, or avoids the baby, or says, stop crying. So all of that impacts your nervous system. It builds
Yeah.
your nervous system, and then it's how you show up in relationship. And it's fascinating with attachment styles because you can actually do little experiments, and I do this with my clients all the time. Like if I come close and close and close to you, how does your body feel? Do you want me to go away? Do you feel more comfortable when I'm on the other side of the room? Do you feel supported by me? Like all these things. If I ignore you, like you're talking and I just ignore you, how does that feel? I did that experiment on myself, and it was really with my therapist, and it
I
was
would
really
hate
fun.
that.
Me too.
All
That
right, don't ignore me.
that could be, more of the anxious attachment style. So what happened was I was talking and she just grabbed her phone. And my first response was, I don't care. And then I just felt rage. I was like so triggered. And it was really interesting to just observe all of that because it gives you information about yourself in relationship. And, that kind of goes along with anxious attachment, where it's like you're always looking for cues of how people are going to leave, how they're going to abandon or reject you. That's more
Mhm.
of the anxious attachment. And the avoidant attachment is more, I don't want to be in connection. I'm just going to be a workaholic because connection is too much. But I secretly do want connection. But when I'm in it, it feels like way too much for my nervous system. So it's a whole field. And there's so much that you can do as a couple with a somatic, a therapist, or a coach who knows about attachment styles.
It's amazing. We just had one of my favorite guests is my friend Marta, whom I met on Instagram, and she was just on. She's been on twice now. You can find those on Facebook, YouTube, or the podcast version. And she was talking about. We talked all about attachment styles and
Ooh,
relationship green flags instead of red flags, but green flags. So sometimes we get so caught up in looking for those signs, those warning signs that it's going wrong, that we miss all the signs that it's going right. So
mm,
we talked all about that. So I love that you brought that up. Attachment styles is one of my favorite things to study. I have moved through moved through some in the course of my life, and I now am more secure, thank goodness. But I have fearful avoidant tendencies, but I started as an anxious attacher. So I've
but
been working, doing all this work. I
yeah,
overshot it and became fearful avoidant. But now I'm moving towards secure. I'm more secure than I have fearful avoidant tendencies anymore, or anxious,
I
which is
love,
great. Which
yeah.
is great. So with I think a coach is important. Personally, I'm a coach. First of all, if you don't know, I coach for London Real Academy. I coach a lot of courses there with Brian Rose from London Real, LondonReal.tv, all of that stuff.
I
And
didn't
I
know. So
you didn't
cool.
know that? Yeah, I
No,
am a coach, and I love coaching people. I coach a lot of different kinds of courses too. Right now we're doing a crypto course, but I've done a life accelerator course, which is all of this great stuff about creating your best life. I've done the business accelerator course, which is online course creation, and my favorite course, which is the broadcasting course. I teach podcasting, and I even did a speaking course with him, so which we helped
it
people
really
create
shows.
speeches.
The questions you ask, the way you speak it really like it's very clear that you have that background.
It's what I love to do, and I would have never known it. But I'm so thankful to Brian Rose and everything that he does. But shout out to London Real. But I'm a coach, and I think it's so important. And I always tell my students that anything you want to do, and this is key for changing your life completely, because you deserve your best, most amazing life. Get a coach. If you don't know what to do, get a coach. I right now have a documentary coach, so I can learn how to make a documentary, right? So
Oh,
yeah, so I think it's important. I feel like you need a coach and maybe at least a mentor, at least one mentor.
absolutely.
And that's like your team to help you evolve and push yourself out of your comfort zone and learn all the things that you need to learn, whether that's for your personal life or your professional life. And so
I
I
have
love what you do.
a major team right now. Major. I have a therapist. I have my medium that I go to, who's amazing, and I have
Yes.
a relationship coach, and I have a trauma-informed personal trainer. So I have all the things.
Trauma informed. What is a trauma informed personal trainer? Wait, before we go
So
on, I need to know that.
yeah, it's really cool. It's funny because I was just talking to her to bring her on to my group program as a surprise to my
Wow.
participants to do like a stretching session. So I found her randomly on Instagram and I was so happy because I used to work out really, really hard and basically disassociate while working out to
Mm.
avoid like everything, to avoid my emotions and everything. And my partner would always tell me, "You look unhappy." And I was like, "I'm happy. I'm fine." And
No.
so I injured myself really badly. My back just gave out, which I'm great. It sucked, but I'm really grateful because I couldn't walk for like 2 weeks, because it got me to stop doing it and to really see that I was using the workout as I was putting my body in a fight or flight state, which makes no sense. Like your workouts shouldn't feel like you're getting chased by a lion. And so, Gabby Varga, look her up. She's freaking amazing.
I will.
Yeah, she is. You can bring her on too.
Mm.
What she does is really get you to like feel your body, stay connected to your muscles, and to train in a way where you're actually like present and feeling it and not just like doing reps, for fun. And stretching and mobility to where it's comfortable, it's like a little uncomfortable, but you're not like totally shutting down because it's like so painful in your body. So with her help, actually, my back feels freaking amazing. And the interesting
Wow.
thing is the psoas muscle, which is in your lower back and goes also to your hips, to the front. It's the fight or flight muscle because it's the muscle that
Mm.
activates your legs to like run. And so that's the muscle that was tight for me, which makes so much sense. I was in
It
fight or flight
does.
all the time. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's just really incredible. I am going to look her up. I feel like she would be a great guest on this show. I already have a million questions. So that's
Sure.
incredible. But honestly, I love that you have a team because I think we do need to have a team. And I mean, there's people at all different price points. Not everybody can just go spend $10,000 or whatever, but there's
Right.
different price points. So you can find someone in your budget that can support you. But I think it's so important to have these people around you that can help you move in the direction you want to go in, especially if it's a direction that you're unsure about or you've never done before. You know,
Absolutely.
it's
I just came
it,
out with a new online course that is $33. Well, it's hello, thank you. It's
as my
so I
first fan.
cool. I
Yeah, go
put
ahead.
there's three pricing options on it. Kind of did it kind of cool where like you can buy it for $33 or 55 or 77 and it's the same course. It's
Ah,
just whatever you want to pay. But to
that's
your
amazing.
point, it has so much information and so many practices for 33 bucks if that's what you can afford. It's there. So these resources are out there and depending on your budget, you can get the support that you need.
I love that. And you're brilliant. You're really amazing, really informative. I learned so much today. I'm sure everybody learned so much today. Tendai did. Hi, sweetie. Thanks for tuning in today. This is just incredible. I see how beneficial it is for you as a person, solo, in a relationship, for men, for women, and just making your life feel better, like in your body, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love
Yeah.
talking to you. You ask brilliant questions and have like amazing observations and examples, and I just loved it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. We're gonna wrap it up, but before we do, you talked a little bit about your price points and what you offer. But I know you offer so much. I went to your Instagram. I clicked on your link tree. So if go here, right there, and then click on her link tree. It's in her bio, and you'll see all of the things that she's offering. But can you give us just sort of a rundown of what you're offering right now and how we can engage with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's that course. It's called The Blooming Butterfly. And that course is all about change and transition, how you can go through change and transition in your life with your nervous system, with safety and healing tools. I have three courses. So I have that, I have an inner child course, and I also have my really big course on triggers, which is called Treasures in the Trigger, which is like super comprehensive. And then you can do a single session. You can do the 3 months of coaching. So that's in my waitlist form. You can just fill that out. And I do have a group program that is officially closed for signups. But if you're really curious about it, you can reach out to me because we start September 4th. So there's still a little bit of time and there are spots available.
Nice. Well, go there and go to the link tree and go sign up and start, on this beautiful process. I'm really curious about the inner child course. Like, will you just, I know we're going to wrap in a second, but will you just really quickly sort of clue us in as to why that's important and why you're offering that?
Yeah, so that course is also a somatic inner child course. So I think a lot of us, maybe not everyone, knows that how beneficial it is to connect to your inner child. And that is because, that's who shows up when you're triggered. You're 7, you're not, like you said, I'm not 9 anymore. But in that moment, you are, right? Like you turned 9 in that moment. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 11 days and it's guided. Every day there's like a meditation or a practice that shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes. That's the idea. And you work on these things to develop a relationship with your inner child, to do attachment work, to work somatically in your body. And it's really beautiful.
Oh, it sounds beautiful. You actually just helped me realize something in this very moment. So, yeah. So I'm going to tell you. So remember how I was saying that I turned 9 years old in that moment, and that I was triggered when I felt so like silenced by, it was like a Mean Girls, had a Mean Girls moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually spoke up. I said, hey, I didn't like that. That wasn't cool. The 9-year-old version of me would have never done that.
Yeah.
So actually, that whole part of the process, that's an additional layer of healing there for me, because I was
Absolutely.
a very sort of fawny type of child.
Yeah.
Right. So I would have never took that step to just say, hey, shut up. Like, or I don't like
Yeah.
that, or speak up for myself in any way. So of course I'm really not like that now. Like, I will tell you. But it was fun. The point is in that moment, in that triggered state, the 9-year-old little girl version of me actually had a moment and she got healing. So it's really
Yeah.
beautiful. I just realized that this very moment.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like Jen, the medium that I work with, she always says, take that little kiddo by the hand and fight for her. Exactly. I love that.
And we say her, but there are little boys and all of these men
Absolutely.
that are watching this episode right now. And I
Absolutely.
know, because I have a 7-year-old right now, right? And I am so conscious of trying so hard not to create wounds for him. And I know that I've probably created some. Okay. I'm aware of that, but I'm
Well,
focused
he
and
won't be
conscious on trying
bored.
not to, you know?
He won't he won't be bored as an adult, he'll have stuff to work on. It's more interesting, right?
I agree. Cause like, what if we had nothing to work on? We would be
I
kind of like assholes. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, you need a little, I don't know, something to work through to give you a
totally.
depth.
Totally. It's so true. Yeah. Well, your son is so lucky to have you. And absolutely, this is all for all the little boys and little girls.
That's right. I love that. I love the work that you do. I want to
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for being a guest on Hot Topics Live today. It's been a great conversation. I learned a lot and I appreciate you.
Thank you for inviting me and doing this was wonderful.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. So I will put you in the green room. I will wrap the show. If you have time for a proper goodbye, I will see you there in just a couple minutes. If not, I will also understand. So it's been such a pleasure. Well, that was awesome. Okay, I had so much fun talking to Marina just now because I learned a lot and I hope you did too. And like I said in the beginning of the show, I mean, you are amazing and you deserve to be living your best life possible. And if this episode helped you, then I have done my job this week. And I will be back in 2 weeks. I will be off next week. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, at Matilda's wedding, which is why she's not right here. So I will be in Armenia. And if you follow me on Instagram, you will be able to see all of the beautiful pictures and my stories and everything that I'm going to be doing in my travels. So follow me here, right there. And especially on at Creativity, you will see all of the updates of my travels to Armenia and everything I'm going to be doing there, and all of my other adventures and my modeling photos and all the stuff that I do to just live my best life because it makes me happy. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Figure out what that is that makes you happy and then go do it. Have something to look forward to. Even if it's just like something really small, it just makes life so much better. And one more thing before I wrap. Somebody asked me this week, how do I manifest things? And I think it's important to say that there are a lot of people out there, and we forget this. A lot of us are in this community where we're all about manifesting things and the law of attraction and the law of assumption and creating our best lives. But there's a lot of people in the world who don't know anything about it. And if you're one of those people, keep tuning in. I'm going to drop tips. But the first one is it starts with your thoughts. So start really taking note of what you're thinking about and how many of those thoughts are limiting beliefs and derogatory, especially about yourself. How often are you thinking negative thoughts about you? And then I want you to think about, would you treat anyone else that way? I hope not. So it starts with you. This all starts with you. And it all starts with what you're thinking about. So if you want to create positive change in your life and have that amazing life that you deserve, start thinking about what you're thinking about. And I highly recommend the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. That should get you started. Hi, Rhonda. I love you so much. I miss you. Let's connect soon. And with that, that's a wrap. Thank you for watching. I love you guys. Check me out on TikTok. I'm over there too at Creativity. I'm now live streaming to LinkedIn. So if you're watching there, hi. And stay tuned for more great episodes and more great content. I appreciate you. I love you. Bye.